So good morning, everyone. We're just continuing a conversation with the course syllabus. Okay, so I want to share my screen, go back to the syllabus here. And so let's talk. These are some, whoa, what happened there? That was weird. Okay. Technologies, brittle. All right. Some class policies. You know, folks, my classroom policies were really designed for a physical classroom, so that not all of these are just that terribly relevant, but we'll go through them. I'll make a couple comments. Okay, number one, attendance is mandatory. Gang, that's not for me, that's for you. If you're not in class, you're not part of the course conversation, you're really not up to speed with what we're talking about, and it's going to make it a lot harder for you to be successful. Okay, if you miss something, you know, if you miss a class, I'm not going to come knocking on your door and say, why weren't you in class? Oh, goodness gracious, I would never do that. But the point of it is, if you're not in class, it makes it a lot harder to be successful. I will say that if you miss an exam, you need to contact me within 24 hours of the missed exam date and explain to me why you missed the exam. Okay, that's extremely important, that you don't miss exams. Okay, number two, cheating on exams is wrong. Well, we know that. Let me ask you a question in the chat window. Here's a question. Please give me your response. Okay. Have you ever done something in your life that in retrospect was probably a bad idea? So, I mean, it's kind of silly, right? Because we're all human beings. So I think we can probably all say yes to that. And I'll say a double yes to that. Two hands up. If I could raise my feet at the same time, I would. Okay. So, of course, and that's my point about cheating. Okay. I've certainly made many bad choices in my life. Just to give you a true but unfortunately true example, when I was a child, probably around the age of 8 or 9, I don't exactly remember, I made the bad choice of setting my bed on fire because I was playing with matches. Okay, that wasn't a terribly good choice when I was 8 years old, but nonetheless, I did do that. Okay, well, cheating is like that, right? We don't want to cheat our way through the course. I honestly think it would be pretty difficult to achieve that goal. But think about it this way. Many of you are in the course because you want to be a future nurse or doctor or some kind of medical specialist, maybe a paramedic, whatever it might be. You want to take care of people. Well, you know that patients are going to want, they're going to need, they're going to deserve that you actually know what you're doing, right? When you're the patient, you want to be cared for by somebody that knows what he or she is doing. And so that means we really do need to learn the content to the very best of our ability without cheating. So enough said about that. All right, classroom behavior. Hey, usually I have problems more so in the physical classroom with cell phones because they can be very disruptive and, you know, they divert students' attention. Hey, you're at home by yourself. If you want your cell phone next to you while class is happening, have at it. It won't disturb me. Okay, so go ahead. Withdrawing from the course. Once again, you might be in the class, you might take an exam or two, and you say to yourself, wow, this is pretty intense. I didn't know that. And you might say to yourself, I'm not sure I'm going to pass. Could I get out of the course and take a W on my transcript rather than an F? And the answer is yes. You may withdraw from the course up to the 70% completion date. You do not need my permission to do so. And you can take a W on your transcript rather than an F, which is a little bit easier on your GPA calculation. Incomplete grades. I do not give incomplete grades for any reason, so that you just know my policy on that. Labs. If we were physically on the Lancaster campus and in a lab, I would say, please don't bring food or drink to lab, but we're not doing that. So have your sodas and coffees and whatever you like. Lecture recording, usually if we're in class, I let students record lectures, but I'll be recording, most times I'll be recording the lecture here on Zoom and I'll post it for you. So I'm kind of doing that work for you, okay? Not that it's that important, but some of you do seem to want it, so I will provide it. Okay. Do you have any questions?
Are we allowed to use like notes for the exam?
Are you allowed to use notes for the exam? Okay, Daniel, that's an interesting question. Here's my response. Since we're living in a virtual world right now, you're taking class in a remote setting, I honestly have no way of stopping you from using your notes. I can't stop it. So my answer to you is this. You should take your exam behaving in a way that gives you a clean and clear conscience. If you have a clean and clear conscience using your textbook and notes during the exam, fine. I can't stop that, and I won't even make an attempt to do that. Danielle, what you will find is two things. Number one, my exams are hard enough that you will not have enough time to look everything up. So you really do need to study and prepare for that. And number two, the more you study, prepare, and organize, the better your grade really will be. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Thanks for the question.
No, thank you.
Anything else? Okay. So let's see here. Course description. Folks, here's some things that I have to say, just so you know I've said it, like I'm legally required to say this stuff. Here's our course description. Well, the title of the course is Anatomy and Physiology. Here's some of the things we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how the body is organized. We're going to talk about some basic biological chemistry. Cytology would be cell biology. Histology is the study of tissues. We're going to talk about some common diseases and clinical applications. And this semester in lab, we're going to especially emphasize the skeletal system, muscular system, and nervous systems. That's what you're going to get out of AMP1, and it will provide a good foundation so you move to AMP2, okay? So this is just a description and some of the content we would expect you to learn once you have finished the course, okay? It is a course designed for those interested in a clinical medical career, okay? Next, and we're getting towards the end here, two statements. First, students in need of accommodations, right? You may be a student that has a natural disability of sorts. The example I always use is maybe dyslexia. Maybe you have dyslexia, so maybe it takes you longer to read than the typical average person. So please know that if you are in that category, that you can request legally justifiable accommodations where I can give you extra time on exams and assignments and things like that. And so if you feel that you would benefit from an accommodation, you can go to that web link to contact someone to get into our accommodation system. I also provide the accommodation contacts right here on the last page of the syllabus. For the Lancaster campus, it would be Ms. Vicki Van Heist. You would reach out to her and say, hey, could I talk to you about, getting into the accommodation system? So that's something that you could choose to do if you feel you would qualify for it. And if you don't know whether you would qualify for it, there's no harm in having a conversation with Vicki Van Heist. Just say, hey, could I talk to you about this? Okay. So those disability services and student access services are available to you as students. And the last thing we'll mention here is the Equal Opportunity Clause, which is just, a legal way of saying, hey, we at HAC, myself as a representative of HAC, we are not intentionally trying to bias or prejudice the instruction we provide to you in any way. Doesn't matter who you are, or how you live your life. The only thing that I care about is, do you understand anatomy and physiology? That's it, okay? So All right, gang. So that's my spiel that I have to go over the first day of class. Is there anything you'd like to ask at this point?
Yes, I actually have a question. Where would I find the textbook?
Yep. Okay. Good question, Walter. I'm going to show that stuff coming up next. So just stay tuned. Other questions about the syllabus? Okay. All right. So let's answer Walter's question, and we'll answer Walter's question by showing you how to get into Wiley Plus. Now, I've noticed that many of you have already done that, but not everybody. So for the benefit of those that haven't, let me say to you that you should have received an email from me at the very least yesterday. There should be an email from me in your hack email inbox, and it would have had some Wiley Plus flyers attached. It has 2 Wiley Plus flyers attached. Here's the first one. Okay, it has instructions of how to get into Wiley Plus. So if you haven't done that, you can begin the process of doing that. And certainly, we'll have like a 15-minute break between lecture and lab today. You could maybe spend some time to get into Wiley Plus at that point. So you would use these instructions that I have sent you through email to get into first the lecture portion of your course in Wiley Plus. And I'm going to click the next tab. The next tab is the same. It's a different flyer with a different course ID here. This will get you into the laboratory portion of the course on Wiley Plus. So you need to go through the 2 flyers. You need to use both of them, go through the entire process twice, once to get into the lecture portion of Wiley Plus, second time to get into the lab portion of Wiley Plus. Let me just ask a question in the chat window here. Okay. Have you received the Wiley Plus flyers from me in your email? Did you get them? Okay. All right. If any of you are answering no, and you say, no, I did not get that, I'm going to ask you to check your email again one more time to be sure that you didn't miss it. Make sure it's not in your junk box. And if you did not get it, please send me an email today, and I will respond back to you with the necessary information. I'm going to put my email address into the chat window so that if you do need to reach out to me, you can do that. Okay. If you need to email me for the flyers, please use tdallen@hack.edu, and I will get back to you with that information. Okay. All right. So you use these flyers to log into Wiley Plus. I know many of you have done that, but not everybody. So, okay, when you do that, when you will create a password and so forth, and you'll get into Wiley Plus, what are you going to see? That's the next thing. What are you going to see? Well, folks, here's what you're going to see. Okay, you're going to see, not this, excuse me a second. Got to make my window. I need like a 50-inch monitor when I don't have enough real estate here. Okay. Okay, so boom. All right. This here is what you're going to see when you log into Wiley Plus, into the lecture portion of Wiley Plus. Now, let me say, if you're currently logged into the lecture portion of Wiley Plus in your computer, it might look a little bit different. And that's because my version as the instructor does look a little bit different than your version. So let me show you what you should see on your computer when you log into Wiley Plus. I'm going to click on the student view. Here I go. 1, 2, 3. Boom. Your Wiley Plus should look like this. Okay, it should look like this if you're in the lecture part of Wiley Plus. Okay. So I'm going to leave that just because I prefer to operate with the extra features I have available as an instructor. But that's what your screen should look like. Okay. So I'm going to leave the student view, and I'm going to show you a couple things. Okay. All right. So, all right. So you notice when you log in first, it comes up with your assignments. Now, folks, I'll say this again and again because I don't want you to get confused. Right now, I am showing you the lecture portion of Wiley Plus, not the lab. I'm showing you the lecture portion of Wiley Plus. And notice I have assignments here. Most of them are concept check assessments from all the chapters throughout the semester we're going to do. Please hear me. The homework assignments that are assigned in Wiley Plus for lecture are not required. You do not have to do them. Okay, the homework assignments in the lecture portion of Wiley Plus are not absolutely required. You do not have to do them. They will not be graded. They will not count towards your grade. So you might say, well, why are they there? They're there because I, as your instructor, are making a recommendation of content that I think you should wrestle with during your private study time. Okay, so these assignments, chapter 1, concept check assessment, chapter 2, concept check assessment, I would like you to do them, but you don't have to do them. They are optional, okay? All right, now the first assignment up here is learning to navigate Wiley Plus. That's something I really would encourage you to do because it's going to do what it says. It's going to help you get comfortable with learning to navigate Wiley Plus, right? So you bring it up here, and notice the first thing it tells you up here. This short assignment is not for course credit, but will help you get off to a good start this semester by teaching you the basics of navigating Wiley Plus. And so you go through this by answering questions that help you get familiar with the functionality of the website. Okay, that's its purpose. Okay, so I'll leave you to do that. If you choose to do that, it's optional, but I encourage you, why not get off to a good start, right? All right, so these are the assignments which in lecture are optional. They are not absolutely required. Okay. Please interrupt if you have questions. Continuing down the left side of Wiley Plus, there's this discussion tab. Discussions are for you to ask questions. I've put in 2 discussions here. Are you having software technology problems with the course? You could make a post in here if you're having a technology issue, and by answering your question, I might be able to help other people that have the same or similar questions. Okay, so think of this as a discussion board. You might be familiar with discussion boards. The second discussion is what biology and A&P content questions do you have? If you have a question about a topic in A&P, I guarantee you someone else in the class has the same question because there's lots of complicated things. So if you ask it and I'm able to answer it, I can help everybody at the same time. Okay, so feel free to use the discussion board to post questions. I will check them, if not on a daily basis, typically every other day basis, I will check them to see if there's something I can help you with, okay? If you have something that's extremely urgent and you say, my God, Dr. Allen, help, 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 help. Well, what you can do is number 1, you can pop in during office hours on the Zoom link, or number 2, you can send me an email at tdallen@hack.edu, and I will do my best to help you, okay? All right. Now, there is a grades tab here on the left. Folks, the grades tab will not, in Wiley Plus, it will not have your entire course grade. It won't. So it's kind of meaningless in Wiley Plus. But what it will have, when I show you the lab portion of Wiley Plus, it will have your graded assignments from Wiley Plus, and that can tell you how you did on your homework, okay? All right, the people section, if you list people out, it's going to give you a list of the people taking the course, right? Here we go. List of the people taking the course, okay? The Pages tab along the left. Pages tab is a place where you're going to find important links. So notice I have Zoom and visible body links for class. If you click on the first thing, it will open up the Zoom address for lecture, which you're currently on. I have the office hours Zoom link here, and I have the visible body link here. Now remember, visible body is something we're going to use for lab today and throughout the entire semester. To access visible body, you must be logged into My Hack, and then you go to the visible body link. So let's do it now. I'm going to do it, and if you happen to be logged in, you can do it with me if you haven't already done it. I'm going to click visible body here. Okay. Notice it brings up Human Anatomy Atlas 2021, and it says in the center of the screen, launch the Human Anatomy Atlas. So go ahead, click that. And it's going to take a moment to pull up the software through your web browser. Okay, at this point, it should be loading the Human Anatomy Atlas through your web browser. Okay, and lo and behold, hey, we have the body. Okay, and so everything in the visible body is running through a cloud service, right? This is running through the internet and it's being pumped through your web browser. So it's pretty powerful software. The only time it gets rough is when your internet connection is not so good. Okay, so that can happen. But I'll teach you how to use this. But, you know, for right now, you can click on anything you want, right? There's a magnificent view of your heart. And obviously, you can rotate it around. You can dissect the heart. You can look into the heart. All kinds of good stuff, folks. Today, you know what? Today, you're going to think this is super cool. At least I think you will, because it is pretty cool. But 5 weeks from now, you're going to be like, oh my God, this is intense. Okay. So it's here for you to help you, but it's also here to challenge you. Okay. So I'll show you more about that later on today. Okay. Quick question coming through the chat window. Have any of you successfully loaded visible body on your computer? Any of you get it? Awesome. I'm getting some yeses here. That makes me real happy. Okay, great. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I logged into Wiley, and for whatever reason, it's telling me, I don't know if anyone else has this, just because people are saying they logged into it. It's telling me that I can't access courses until later today. And the only assignment posted is something from last May.
Well, okay. I'm sorry. Was that Lauren that was speaking?
Yes.
Yeah, Lauren, I would need to see specifically your screen that you're looking at to give you more advice on that. But it is true that some of the assignments I have placed are timed assignments, which means I control, as the instructor, I control when they open up to you.
I don't have the pages tab option though to even get to the link for this.
Okay, so that does suggest to me that something's a little out of whack with what you have set up. And what I can say is that later today sometime, perhaps after our main lab stuff is done, I can spend time helping you with that, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? And so, Lauren, what I would say right now is, do your best to go back through the instructions that we've so far covered and see if you just made an honest mistake. Maybe it's just a silly thing that happened. But I will help you. I'll help anybody that needs to help.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I do have a question from Walter. So where would I find the chapters? Yep. Okay. Good question, Walter. Keep with me, Walter. I promise I'm going to show you all that stuff. Okay, so for right now, I'm just going to stop my visible body because I want to do other things, okay? And I'm going to go back to the Wiley Plus. Okay, so the Pages tab should have important links for you. And let me say this, that typically, as we get started in the semester here, on the Pages link of Wiley Plus, this is where I will put links for the lecture recordings. So after today's class, and when I have a moment, I will post a link here to today's conversation that we're currently having about everything. Okay, so you'll find it under the Pages tab. All right, going down to Files on the left side of Wiley Plus. Okay, notice the only file right now is your syllabus, but I point that out. Maybe you lose your syllabus, maybe you forget about it. Hey, it's here underneath the Files tab. You can click on it, and lo and behold, it brings it up. It brings it up. Okay, so folks, as magnificent as computers are, I would encourage you, if you have a printer at your home, I would encourage you to download and print certain documents out as you begin to organize your materials and notes for the course, right? Why not have a printout of your syllabus in the front of your A&P notebook so you can reference it very quickly? You never know when you might lose internet connection and you still want to know something, right? Same way with other information that I'll point out. If you have the luxury of a printer, it can be very helpful to download this document and print it out so you have it at home. Okay. All right. Next, we have the syllabus tab. The syllabus tab is not the syllabus that I've just gone over in the course. In fact, it's not that important to you, but the syllabus tab will show you the schedule of assignments that have been assigned. Not terribly useful, but it can tell you what's been assigned and what its due date information is. Okay, Walter, I'm going to answer your questions now about the textbook. Okay, so if you haven't done it so far, I mean, some of you have been playing around. I appreciate that, and that's totally cool. Go up to the Wiley Course Resources, click on that. Okay, and you will notice the very first thing here is the Wiley Plus e-textbook. Please try to launch your textbook. Go ahead and do that. Okay, so it's going to take a moment and it's going to spool up your textbook. Your textbook is going to come up in your web browser. You will be reading your textbook primarily through the computer, right? In a digital form, right? Here is your textbook. And you know, you can click to all the content in the book that you need. It is the entire textbook. It's not abbreviated in any way. Okay, so that big thick book I showed you at the beginning, you know, it's got over 1,000 pages. It's got 1,100 and some pages. It's all here on the computer for you. Okay, you will also, and I'm going to let you play around with it because that's probably the best way you learn. You should be able to download a digital copy of your textbook onto your local computer. You should be able to do that. There should be a settings button somewhere along the left side of your browser. You might have to search for it, that you can download it. And when you do so, it's going to look like this. Hold on. It's going to look like this. It's going to show you the book in an application that's called Vital Source. Okay, so you can download your textbook and your lab manual to your local computer. You should be able to achieve that. Okay. All right. So let me ask you in the chat window. Have you been able to access your textbook? Have you been able to get it? Okay. All right. All right. Okay. So, you know, what we're doing right now with all this digital stuff is actually a brand new program at Hack. I mean, it hasn't been used much at all. And this is the first time I'm using it, to be honest with you. So I was a little nervous this morning that something would go haywire, but so far so good. And that's very encouraging. Okay. All right. So now you know where your textbook is. All right. So I'm going to tab over my web browser back over to Wiley Plus. Okay. And just pause for a moment and say, hey, do you have any quick questions you'd like to ask? Okay, I think we're doing good. Now, folks, remember, you had to use both Wiley flyers. One Wiley flyer gets you into the lecture portion of Wiley Plus, and the second Wiley flyer gets you into the lab portion of Wiley Plus. I'm now going to go to the laboratory portion of Wiley Plus. Here we go on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, click. Ah, that's not what I wanted to show, of course. Oh, there it is. Okay. I am now in the lab portion of Wiley Plus, and if nothing else tells you that, take a look at the assignments. Lab exercise 1, lab exercise 1, lab exercise 2, 8, so on and so forth. Let me reiterate here. In the lab portion of Wiley Plus, you find your lab homework that was outlined on the syllabus that I went over 15 minutes ago, right? The homework listed in your syllabus refers to the laboratory homework that you access on the lab section of Wiley Plus. So these activities that you see here, these are required assignments. They are required assignments. You must do them. They count towards your grade. If you didn't do them, it would just obliterate your grade, and you don't want to do that. Okay, so these are required assignments that are due on typically a weekly basis. I mean, obviously here, let's take a look. Lab exercise 1 says due September 7th. Okay, all of these are due September 7th, so next week. Then we get the lab exercise 8. Those are due September 14th, right? So you'll want to keep track of your syllabus and your lab homework schedule to be sure you're completing the activities when they are in fact due. Okay, the lab activities are designed to build your knowledge, They give you things to wrestle with and to challenge yourself so that you learn. And by doing these things, you will do better not only on lab exams, but on lecture exams, okay? All right. In our course, physiology and anatomy are split pretty evenly in terms of their importance and weight. You know, as you begin to get into clinical training, particularly for nurses, the clinical faculty will tell you that, at least as a beginning student, your knowledge of anatomy is at least momentarily more important than your knowledge of physiology, because you have to know, you know, what vein to use to put in an IV and that kind of thing. All right. So in our course, the physiology and anatomy are weighted very equally. Okay. Okay. So let's see here. If you want to get your lab manual, you got to be in the lab portion of Wiley Plus, which I am right now, and you go to Wiley Course Resources, and you launch the e-textbook. And lo and behold, I have the laboratory manual for anatomy and physiology, Connie Allen, Valerie Harper, 7th edition. Okay, it's all there for you, folks. So you access your lecture textbook in the lecture portion of Wiley Plus. You access your lab manual in the lab portion of Wiley Plus. Okay. All right. Questions, gang? I could sit here and continue to show you stuff, but I really think I've shown you the basics of what you need to know. And as you start to swim through it this week, the best way you'll learn is kind of push buttons, read, see what happens when you push button, that kind of thing, right? A little bit of experimentation is going to go a long way to allow you to do this, okay? Let's see here. For example, obviously in the upper right corner of my screen, you see I'm highlighting the notes, bookmarks, and flashcards, right? You can actually make your own flashcards and highlight notes electronically and digitally in this product as you do it, okay? So you can choose whether you want to make electronic flashcards or physical flashcards that you use at your home. That's totally your choice. You can do it however you want to. I'm just saying the functionality is there. You'll have to play around a little bit to learn it, okay? As someone who's probably older than most of you, I never read textbooks on the computer. That was not part of my generation. So I still prefer the physical textbook, but we're using the digital stuff at this point for a couple of reasons. Number one, the course right now is entirely remote, it's online. And number two, many students have concerns about the cost of textbooks and things like this. So going digital was a way for us as an institution to bring down the cost of the course materials to you as a student. Okay, so you're really getting some really excellent resources for a very modest price. Okay, so I hope over time you will appreciate that. But if there is something you don't like, I want to hear that too, because you might have a legitimate gripe that I should talk about with my superiors to see if we can fix that for you. Okay. Okay, Kang. So we are in good shape here. And there's more I could show you, but right now I've shown you how to access enough to be dangerous with yourself, okay? And to get yourself in trouble. And I say that just jokingly. You're not going to break anything here. Just push buttons and see what happens, okay? All right, so Walter, did I answer your questions? Well, okay. Maybe I put Walter to sleep already. I don't know. But at any rate, I hope I answered Walter's questions. Do any of you have questions at this time?
Yeah, I do. Earlier I had gotten my books like at the end of spring and beginning of summer. They sent me a McGraw-Hill Connect. Do you know if I should contact someone to send it back or something?
Yeah, I would contact the bookstore and see if you can get your money back, because I'm sorry, I can't tell who's speaking. Who's speaking?
Christian.
Christian? Okay, Christian, I would contact the bookstore because we're not using a McGraw-Hill product for this course. See if you can get your money back or any portion of your money back. And you do need to sign up to get the digital access here, inclusive access for this course, so you have the right materials.
Okay.
Okay, other questions? Okay, fantastic. Well, folks, okay, so I'm going to stop playing around with Wiley Plus at the moment and talk about a few other things, namely, how can you be successful in this course? I want to make you aware of a few things. Okay, so let me see here. I'm going to go to the Hack website here, to the main page. Okay, something that you should be aware of. There's this very nice web page with a lot of important information to connect you to important services at Hack that will help you as a student. And it is right here at the top center. It's called the Learning Commons. Let's click on that, the Learning Commons. When I click on the Learning Commons, notice what it brings up. It brings up 4 columns of information about the library. Now, I'll be honest with you, the library is not important for my course. I have everything I need to torture you with Wiley Plus. I don't need to use the library, okay? So, but you might be using library for other courses you're taking, so there you go. You might have courses where you're dealing with testing or placement testing to get into courses, or TEAS tests for, for nurses. Here's a place to get important information. The reason I'm showing you this is because you have the tutoring column, okay? Folks, this is a demanding course. That's just being honest. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just saying this is a demanding course. And so there's no shame in getting some tutoring if you need help. So you can go into the tutoring and look at the current schedules of the tutors, okay, and figure out, make an appointment with a tutor, drop in with a tutor now. You can get specific information for Lancaster. The point of it is that there are tutors available for this course that you can get help with content. If you say, man, Dr. Allen explained osmosis, but I still don't understand it. Well, why not get to a tutor and see if the tutor can help you, okay? You don't have to pay any extra for it. The tutoring is free. It comes with your course tuition. So tutoring is available, and you can access it through the Learning Commons webpage, which is accessed by the HACC webpage at the beginning that I showed you. Also, we also have academic coaching, okay? Academic coaching is not the same thing as tutoring. Tutoring is you want to meet with someone that will help teach you anatomy and physiology. Academic coaching is, wow, I haven't been a student for 10 years because I've been working and paying bills, and now I'm back in school. I'm not sure I even know how to organize my time. I'm not sure I know how to manage my time and organize so I can study properly and be efficient in what I do. The academic coaching will help you make a plan for success. And again, I want you to consider that, particularly if you've been out of school a long time. And honestly, maybe you've been in school, but you haven't taken a science class. Science classes are kind of different beasts than an English literature class, right? We're just different. And so you might need to approach things differently to be successful. At any rate, please consider the academic coaching and the tutoring, which are accessed through the Learning Commons tab of the HACC web page. Okay, also over here on the right column, you have user support. User support is for your technology and software issues. There's a certain amount of technology support I can provide to you as the instructor, but if there's some kind of weird situation going on with your installation of Zoom on your computer, I may not be able to solve that for you. I might honestly in the moment not have time to solve that. And I might say, hey, go to user support on the HACC website, dial this telephone number, 780-757-2570, and talk to our IT gurus. They're the people that are paid to do that. Okay, so user support is for technology issues that you're experiencing while you're trying to take the course. Okay, so once again, HACC, come on. Okay, let's go back to the main web page here. And Learning Commons is what you want. Learning Commons is very, very helpful to you. Okay. Okay, what else to talk about here? Let me talk about other things that I think you should, that I would want you to be aware of as we get started. And sometimes your instructor hits the wrong key on the keyboard. Okay, and let's try this. All right, so how to be successful in class. Okay, I try to make that a little bit bigger. Number one, don't hide. What I mean by that, if you have a problem, get help. If you have a problem, get help. Ask for help, okay? If it's an academic problem where you don't understand content, come talk to me. Go to a tutor. Maybe make a study partnership with someone else in class. You know, make a study partnership with someone else in class, and maybe that would be helpful to you. Number two, make flashcards for vocab. Now, I just mentioned that you can make flashcards with the digital product. You can make digital flashcards, you can make physical paper flashcards. I don't care. But there's going to be a ton of vocab that you need to do. Ton of vocab. Once you get into this, you're going to be like, oh my God, this is insane. Okay. What the hell did I just sign up for? Okay. Don't give up. Push through it. Don't give up. Push through it. Okay. Make flashcards for vocab. And continue that way. Now, here's something I haven't pointed out yet. I'm trying to watch my time here. Here's a question. How do you know if you are ready for Dr. Allen's exam? How do you know if you are ready for Dr. Allen's exam? Well, let me tell you, you will never be ready for my exams. I'm teasing you, folks, okay? I'm teasing you, okay? Smile a little bit, okay? Here's the deal. The way you know if you know something is to challenge yourself with questions before you take an exam, okay? Challenge yourself with practice questions before taking the exam. That's how you know. So where are you going to find practice questions? Okay, well, okay. Folks, do you remember? Okay, I'm going to change my screen here. Do you remember? I showed you up on Wiley Plus on the lecture Wiley Plus. You remember these concept checks? Concept checks? These things are not required. You don't have to do them. I'm not going to grade them. But these concept checks are practice questions. They're practice questions from each chapter, which is why I'm strongly urging you to consider doing them. I mean, study the chapter first, or you could even do this. Do the concept check assessment before you read the chapter and say, oh, I really don't know too much. And then you read the chapter, you take notes, you study, you ask your own questions of me, and you come back and see if you can do the concept check questions, okay? So concept check questions in Wiley Plus are not required, but they could be helpful. And of course, when you get to the lab portion, the lab exercises are required. You must do those. Okay, so those are one section for practice questions. But so Wiley Plus, concept checks, and lab exercises. 2, your textbook has questions. There's 2 things in the textbook you should be aware of. Okay, we have figure questions and we have critical thinking questions. Let me show you this. Okay, so I'm going to bring up the textbook. I'm going to bring it up inside. I'm going to bring it up inside. Let's see here. Well, okay, since it's right here, I'll do it. Folks, can you see on my screen, can you see this weird thing that looks like a cell? It's figure 313, phagocytosis. But what I want to highlight is here. See this question? Come on. What triggers pseudopod formation? It's got a pinkish red Q. What triggers pseudopod formation? This is a figure question. So as you read the textbook, pay attention to figure questions. And then what I would say to you is at the end of each chapter, notice over here, I hope you can see it, says answers to figure questions, answers to figure questions. Folks, the critical thinking questions are at the back of each chapter, and they should also be answered at the back of each chapter. Either each chapter or at the back of your textbook. I need to double check that for you. But my point is, your textbook has figure questions, critical thinking questions. They are answered also in your book. So you should be trying to answer them and checking yourself as you go along. Okay? Can be very helpful in that regard. If you were to do all these questions and get a large percentage of them correct, I think you're ready for my exam. Okay? I think you're ready for my exam if you do that. All right. Okay, I see it's 9:14. Now it's 9:15 now by my clock. So I suppose I should momentarily stop. Okay. So gang, here's the deal. We have lab at 9:30. So we're going to take about a 15-20 minute break here. And then we'll come back and do a whole bunch of other things. Here's what I plan to do. You notice I didn't get to talk about any course content today because I was showing you how to get set up. But I need to push, because next week I'm going to start chapter 2, which means this week I got to do what I want in chapter 1. So in our lab time, expect me to do a little bit of lecturing from chapter 1, and then expect me to introduce lab content for you as well today. Okay, we meet from 9:30 to 12:10. So let's do this. Let's take a 20-minute break. We will rejoin each other at 9:35. 9:35, please be logged back in, take a bathroom and snack break, and be ready to go in 20 minutes, okay? Folks, I'm going to leave this Zoom link active. It's going to be on. I'm just going to turn my video off for 20 minutes, but the Zoom link will stay active. You can stay logged in, okay? Do you have any questions before we take a break? All right, folks, have a nice break. See you in 20 minutes, 9:35. Okay, Walter, I see your question to me in the chat window. And let me say that, yeah, I can give you a moment to talk about something in a breakout room or something like that. So, okay, folks, what I'd like to do as we start our lab time together is actually give you folks an opportunity to talk with each other. You know, if we were together in a physical room, I would have given you a couple minutes to talk with everybody around so you can get to meet each other and just say hello, how are you? You can talk about how your summer's been. You can talk about your fears and worries of the course. You can ask each other technology questions, say, hey, how did you do this? Or how do I do this? And so what I want to do is try to promote some contact between each of you. So I'm going to create some breakout rooms where these will be individual virtual rooms where there'll be about 4 or 5 or 6 of you in a room, and just say hi to each other, just introduce yourselves, try to get friendly with each other. The idea here is that I don't want you to feel isolated in the course. You know, we're all separate right now, right? We're all in our own physical locations. So it's hard to develop a sense of community online. And it's one of the reasons I don't particularly care for online teaching. But this is the best we can do. I'll put you in a room, just talk to each other and say, hey, how you doing? If you need an icebreaker, then start by telling people your favorite cartoon character. Okay, something silly. Walter, I see your message to me. And Walter, what I'm going to say to you is, when I bring up the breakout rooms and everybody enters their breakout room, Walter, I want you to stay back with me. So Walter, don't enter your breakout room, and then you and I can talk. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. So hold on, folks. I need to. Okay. All right. So there's going to be 4 breakout rooms. In just a moment, a button is going to come up for you to join your breakout room. Please, everybody, join your breakout room. Say hi to each other. Everybody except Walter. So Walter, you and I can chat for a moment. Here we go. Go ahead, folks. Join your breakout rooms. Okay. Christian, please join your breakout room. Okay, Walter, I'm going to stop the recording. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording. Hi, folks. We'll just wait for everybody to rejoin us here. Okay, so everybody's back. Okay, great. So I hope you had a chance to meet some other folks that are sharing this experience with you. Ask yourself, did you just meet somebody that could be a study partner? Did you meet somebody that at the very least you could swap email addresses with or telephone numbers so that you can, you know, if you miss a day in the course, you can say, hey, Sally, was there something that I missed in class that's particularly important that seemed that it was being emphasized, or, you know, as a way to help each other out. There will be more opportunities for you to interact with each other through the semester, because lab will be a time where it's not so much me talking at you like I do in lecture, but it'd be kind of me saying, okay, I'd like you guys to do this next, and then this next, and then you go off and do it for a while, okay? So at any rate, plenty more of that opportunity to come. Okay, before I begin, and what I'm going to begin with is actually lecturing from chapter 1. Before I begin, you're getting thrown a lot of stuff here this morning. Can feel overwhelming. Know that that feeling will pass. As you get into it, it will feel more natural. So is there anything you'd like to ask right now? Okay, all right. Please let me know. You know, you can always visit me during office hours, shoot me an email, put up a discussion item on the Wiley Plus discussion boards. Plenty of ways to get help. You can go to the Learning Commons, seek out tutoring, all kinds of things that you can do. Okay, folks, I'm going to start lecturing from chapter 1 just because I know where I want to be starting next week. So I need to give you a little bit of content now from chapter 1. I will give you more content on Thursday from chapter 1 in normal lecture, and then we'll be positioned to start chapter 2 next week, okay? So, as they say, you know, I only have like a 24-inch monitor at my home, computer monitor. I don't have a 50-inch beast, so there's only so much I can put up at a time. So I'm going to rely upon you at times to look at your own textbook when I'm referring to content. There might be times when I say, take a look at figure 3 in chapter 7 or something like that, okay? I'm not going to flash it up on my screen. I'm just going to give you the reference that you can bring it up on your own screen if you want to look at it, and I encourage you to do that. What I'm going to do is primarily be taking notes and discussing things from each chapter. So I'm going to share my screen at this time. And what I'm bringing up is where I've started taking notes, right? We had how to be successful in class. We took some notes about this. I'm going to start chapter 1 content at this time, and I'm going to ask you to follow along with me. Folks, I'm recording lectures for you. I'm taking notes along with you right here as we talk about things, and I will send the notes to you. I will put them in Wiley Plus. I will have a link to them. Okay? Under the, I guess the most proper way, I'll probably put them under files where you can see chapter 1 notes or whatever. But my point in bringing this out is I still would really like you to take your own notes while we're talking. I want you to take your own notes, because you know what? If you take your own notes, it forces your brain to focus on what the conversation is about. If you do not focus on the conversation, it's like having the television on without being aware what the actual show is, right? You're not really zoomed in, not focused in, and that's no good for learning. If you want to learn, you got to focus on what's being said. Believe me, I've zoned out plenty of times in my life, plenty of times in a college classroom. It doesn't turn out well. You need to be part of this moment, okay? So please take your own notes as you see fit. All right. I'm going to begin by talking to you about figure 1.1. Figure 1.1 in chapter 1, and it's the levels of structural organization in the human body. Okay. For those that want a page number, it's page 3 in your textbook. I try to make my notes as big as I can. I hope you can see them. Let me see here. In the chat window, can you read the notes on my screen? Or is it big enough? Is it too small? Okay, I mean, I know it'd be nice if it could be bigger, but all right. Okay, so let me know if you're having a real problem. All right, folks. So obviously, if you have figure 1.1 up, you can see what it's talking about here. And the point of it is, what we want as beginning students is we want you to develop an intuition for how your body is organized. Now let's think about that for a moment. If I tell you that a microwave is smaller than an elephant, a microwave is smaller than an elephant. Well, you know that to be true. It's kind of silly to even consider, but think about it. You know that to be true because you've lived an experience in life where you know what a microwave looks like and you know what an elephant looks like. And so there's no question at all that yes, a microwave is smaller than an elephant. But now, if I ask you this, or if I say this, if I say a mitochondrion is larger than a ribosome, well, is that true? I don't know. Is it true? I mean, do you have the intuition you need to talk about things that are super small and the relationship of size of one kind of object to another kind of object? You, at this moment, you may not even know what a ribosome is or mitochondrion is, right? So the everyday experience and intuition you have with everyday objects is going to break down at first when you start thinking about things that are atoms, molecules, cells, things like that. Okay, so we need to talk about very small things and progressively build you up to larger things. And I would dare say probably you're all going to be comfortable with the large things, and you're not going to be so comfortable with the small things because you have not been living a life and existence where you thought about the small things every day. Okay, but the devil's in the details. The devil's in the small things. Think about it right now. The reason I can't talk to you in person is because of this damn thing called a coronavirus and how tiny it is and all the trouble it's creating in society. So we're going to take a journey. We're going to take a journey from small to large, describing how things are organized. And I'm going to start by showing you a web page. And I'm going to go through the web page and show you some things, and then I'll come back and complete my notes here in the Word document for you. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to share with you is a website called Learn Genetics. It's the Genetic Science Learning Center. And I will put the URL for the website in the chat window for you. So if you wanted to load it up on your own computer, you could. Okay, this is a website that has some useful content for learning biology. Is it essential you go through this? No, not at all. It's just other stuff you could use. Okay, and you can play around with it as you see fit. You see it does have some discussion of human health over here, neuroscience, all kinds of good stuff. What I want to go to is underneath cell biology, amazing cells. So I'm going to amazing cells. Lots of features under here. And what I want to talk to you about is cell size and scale. Cell size and scale. So I'm going to click on that. And it brings up this thing here. And I want to start on the right side, on the ultra small stuff. So this is a way of giving you visualization about things that are very tiny and progressively building up into objects that are progressively larger. Okay, so if this is why bouncing back and forth on your screen can be challenging, right? Like right now, I have the physical textbook open on my desk. Okay, I have it open on my desk. That way I don't have to bounce around so much, okay? But if you do see figure 1.1 on your computer screen, you notice that the very first level, there's the chemical level, and it talks about atoms. Well, here on this genetic science learning website, we have carbon atoms. Carbon atoms, you know, are there things smaller than atoms? Well, you know there is probably, right? Electrons, protons, neutrons, and other subatomic particles. We don't need to worry too much about that for our course. If you want to worry about it, you can take some chemistry and physics classes. But suffice it to say, our body and the molecules in our body that allow us to live and experience what we experience are often based on carbon atoms. So carbon atom would be an ultra small piece of matter. And in fact, you can see that the carbon atom is 340 ppm wide. Can anybody unmute your microphone and tell me what PM is short for?
Pictometer,
Please say again.
picometer, picometer, picometer.
Oh, okay, thank you. I couldn't quite understand. Yes, picometer. You're right, Lauren, picometer. And you can see down here in the website that a picometer is 1 trillionth of a meter. 1 trillionth of a meter. Are you going to have to know the math of this for this course? Drum roll. No. You won't have to know the math of it for this course. Are you going to have to know the math of a statement like that to be a registered nurse? Drum roll, yes. So while you won't be held to account for it here in this course, there will be a moment in education where you do have to know it, okay? So 340 picometers is the diameter across a typical carbon atom. Very, very small. Let's start, that's the small as this animation goes. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Okay, I'm going to bring some things in here. Okay, so we go from an individual carbon atom, which is 340 picometers, and we go to, let's say, a water molecule. Now we'll define what atoms and molecules are in chapter 2, which is what I'm going to start next week. But at this point, you appreciate as a molecule is a group of atoms that stay associated by chemical bonds. So we start with a carbon atom, which is super tiny. It's a diameter of 340 picometers. The average diameter across a water molecule is 275 trillionths of a meter. Question coming in the chat window because it's something I need to ask everyone. How many inches are in 1 meter? Thank you, Lauren. Rebecca, awesome, Sierra. Okay, thank you. Hey, folks, let me, it's my job to lovingly give you a hard time. You're all wrong. You told me how many inches are in a yard, not a meter. You see? Anybody know what the answer is? It's 39 inches. 1 yard is 36 inches. 1 meter is 39 inches, right? That's why the math of these things does really matter, particularly when we get into drug dosing calculations and things like this. Right now, don't worry about the math. I'm just pointing out that there's some work ahead that will have to take place. So a meter is 39 inches long. Imagine that the distance between my two hands is 39 inches. I don't know that it is, but imagine that it is. Imagine that you had 39 inches separating your hands, and now chop that space up into 1 trillion evenly divided segments. One of those segments would be 1 picometer. One of those trillion segments would be 1 picometer, okay? So a water molecule is 275 picometers wide. All right. Now let's look at these other things. Methionine. Methionine is an amino acid. Here's a question coming in the chat window. And again, I don't expect that you know the answers, and please don't be afraid to answer and be wrong. I mean, we learn by answering and sometimes being wrong. So methionine, which you see in the web page, is an amino acid. What type of organic macromolecule is made of amino acids? Anybody? Okay, I'll just take the first one I can grab at. Tony, you are right. It's protein. Protein is made of amino acids. Well, how would I know that? How would you know that? Folks, you're going to know that in chapter 2. You're going to know it in chapter 2. Okay? All right. So methionine, you can see, is a little bit bigger typically than a water molecule, which is certainly bigger than a carbon atom. We have adenine down here. Let me see if I can bring it in here a little better. Here's adenine. That's a nucleotide. Nucleotides are part of nucleic acid. Okay, so let me ask you a question. Here it is. What are the 2 major types of nucleic acids that exist inside cells? What do you think, folks? Okay, awesome. Hold on a second. I see the answer there. And Jay, I had to look at my roster here. Jay, you answered it beautifully correct, right? RNA and DNA is the answer. I think that was a direct answer to me, so probably not everybody saw that. So feel free to answer to the entire class if you wish, folks. It's okay. But Jay, you did a good job. RNA and DNA are the two types of nucleic acids. Here's another question coming to everybody. What type of nucleic acid is the coronavirus made of? Anybody know? Okay, I see Christian. Christian, you see messenger RNA. Christian, that's a good answer. I would generalize that a little bit and just say RNA because there are some subtleties there. But you're right, RNA is what the coronavirus is basically made out of. Okay, so good answer. All right, so at any rate, we're talking about size at this moment. So you can see carbon atoms the smallest, water molecules bigger, and amino acids a little bigger, adenines in the same ballpark. Let's get even bigger. Okay, so we take some of these molecules and we're getting bigger. Okay, and I think what I'll do, I'll go, let's go here. Let's go to hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is 6.5 nanometers wide. Okay. So a couple questions in the chat window. Is 1 nanometer larger or smaller than 1 picometer? It is in fact larger. Good job, folks, right? Because we started really small with the carbon atom and we're progressively getting larger. Okay, so notice that our unit of measurement for the objects is now changed from picometers, PM, to nm, or nanometers. Nanometers are billionths of a meter. So hemoglobin is 6.5 nanometers wide. Question in chat window. What does hemoglobin do inside our bodies? Okay, Christian, thank you for answering. That is not correct. Okay, Jay, you have it. You have one of the things correct. Jay says that it transports oxygen, and it is true that hemoglobin is a compound. It's a molecule made of two different things, and it's responsible for delivering oxygen and carbon dioxide throughout our body. Hemoglobin is basically a gas transport compound. It is a gas transport molecule. Okay. All right, well done. Okay, let's take a look at, well, we have tRNA there. tRNA there is 7 nanometers long, basically. Question in the chat window.
Quick question.
Yes.
Okay, what would we write for our answer for what does a hemoglobin do inside our bodies? What would we write for our answer?
Okay, for right now, hemoglobin is a compound. That's a molecule made of two different things that transports oxygen and carbon dioxide throughout the body. Here's another question about tRNA. What process inside cells relies upon tRNA? What does the cell use tRNA to accomplish? And you might begin, okay, Lauren, that's a nice guess. not strictly speaking, Nicola, okay, Jay, immune defenses, okay. So many of you have said some nice things. And I guess I could say that you're kind of right in the most general sense. But I would look for something more precise. tRNA is a molecule of RNA that is critical for the production of protein. tRNA is used for protein synthesis. tRNA is used for protein synthesis. You might be asking, why am I not writing this down right now? Well, because I know that I'll be writing it down later, but it's okay if you want to write it down now, okay? So we're talking about the size of things, okay? All right, so to give you a little bit of background or a little bit of scale to compare with, maybe we should answer this question. tRNA molecule is 7 nanometers wide or long, if you will, in this case. So let me ask you this question. How wide or long is the diameter of a single human red blood cell? Right? If you haven't done this before, right, the best you can do is guess at it, right? Or Google it, right? Everybody Googles these days, okay? Man, God help us if there's a cyber attack and the internet's knocked out, man, we're not going to know anything, are we? All right, so Mark, you say 10 nanometers, Sierra, you say 8 nanometers. I appreciate the guesswork there, but no, think about that. If tRNA is a molecule that is used by the cell, then tRNA has got to be small enough to fit inside the cell. So would it make sense that the cell is 8 nanometers long if tRNA is 7 nanometers long? Does it seem like there'd be room for anything else inside the cell? It doesn't, right? So the answer is a typical human red blood cell will typically be about 8,000 to 10,000 nanometers wide. 8,000 to 10,000 nanometers wide. So if you have a red blood cell that's 10,000 nanometers wide, doesn't it make a lot more reasonable sense that tRNA could definitely fit inside there with a bunch of other stuff? Okay. That's the tuition we want. That's the intuition we want you to develop. Okay. Feel free to ask questions, gang. All right. Antibodies. Antibodies are a very important topic right now, particularly for that portion of our population that has chosen to receive the COVID vaccine, right, to protect themselves because the body is generating antibodies against the COVID virus. 12 nanometers long on average. Let's get a little bit bigger. Okay, here we have a ribosome, which is 30 nanometers wide, 30 nanometers wide. Okay, question in the chat window. What do ribosomes do? What do ribosomes do? I know some of you might have some background in this. Well, folks, ribosomes are tiny little machines inside cells that manufacture protein. Now, wait a second, Dr. Allen, didn't you just tell me that tRNA is involved in protein synthesis? Yes, I did. In other words, tRNA and ribosomes and some other things we haven't told you about yet are involved in the production of protein. Okay. All right. Let's get bigger here. All right. Now, Hepatitis virus. Take a look. Well, now we're getting into the realm of viruses. Hepatitis virus is 45 nanometers wide. Excuse me while I dip out of your screen because I'm going to pick up my micro book. Okay. Hepatitis virus, 45 nanometers wide. Obviously, hepatitis virus is leading cause of liver disease and liver failure. There's rhinovirus, one of the common causes of the cold that gives us misery every year. Let's see here what else we have. So, question coming in the chat window. Question coming in the chat window. Here it is. True or false? A water molecule is larger than a hepatitis virus. Okay, right? It's clearly false, right? It's clearly false, right? Folks, those sorts of questions, I'm going to expect you to be capable of answering on an exam. If I propose you two objects and say which one's larger, or if I make a statement that something's larger than another and I say, is that true or false? You need to be able to tell me that. I don't care about the math right now. I don't care that you can do any math, picometers, nanometers, but I do care that you develop an intuition of one thing being larger or smaller than another thing. Okay. And so the reason I brought up my micro text is because I just wanted to look up what I thought I knew, but I wanted to be sure about it. We're all suffering the consequences, good or bad, for that coronavirus pandemic. And I'm typing in how wide one single coronavirus particle is. Okay, bad English there, but one single coronavirus particle is 80 to 160 nanometers wide. Okay, so coronavirus particle is bigger than a hepatitis particle. Okay. Okay. Let's continue. All right, there we have HIV, right? That's pretty famous. Human immunodeficiency virus, 130 nanometers wide. Influenza virus. Hey, folks, I know we all have a personal opinion about whether vaccines are good or not, and I'm not here to bust you up about it, but I do want to say something. We're all thinking about coronavirus right now. Don't forget that we're entering flu season here. So if you're open to the possibility, don't forget to get a flu shot. Okay. All right. Let's get bigger here. We're getting bigger, bigger, bigger. A coated vesicle. Folks, a coated vesicle would be something that's in your bloodstream, floating outside of cells, and then bumps up with the exterior surface of the cell, and the cell brings it inside. Okay, so coated vesicles are used for communication between cells in the body. Here we have a bacterial virus, 70 by 200 nanometers. They really do look like that. That's not just fancy. Measles virus, 220 nanometers. It's a big guy. All right, and then we get to, well, okay, here we have a lysosome. A lysosome is a recycling facility inside cells. You will learn this in chapter 3. A lysosome is a recycling facility. Cells use it to recycle material, to turn it over. Like you recycle cardboard every week, well, the cell will recycle everything inside the cell. An E. coli bacterial cell is about 3 micrometers wide by 0.6 micrometers high, or depth wise. So length and width here. Mitochondrion Maybe you know about mitochondria. Those are the powerhouses of the cell. They make energy in the form of a substance called ATP. Okay, so remember, we started way back at a carbon atom. We went to a water molecule, we went to amino acids, nucleotides, and we got bigger, 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 bigger. And here we are now talking about things that are measured in micrometers. Okay, so a micrometer is 1/1,000,000th of a meter. And remember, a meter is 39 inches long. Okay, okay, let's continue. All right, so here we get to our good friend baker's yeast. Thank God for baker's yeast, right? Because we wouldn't have the tasty breads we had without it. We wouldn't also have a lot of our alcohol either. We have an X chromosome, okay? Ladies, you have 2 copies of the X chromosome. Us guys, we only have 1 copy of the X chromosome. Lengthwise, it's about 7 micrometers long. There's your red blood cell. Remember, I said a typical red blood cell is 8 to 10,000 nanometers, which is the same thing as 8 micrometers wide. Okay. Yes. Okay, let's continue here. By the way, you remember a little bit ago, we talked about hemoglobin. What did we say hemoglobin was? It's a compound used to transport gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide. Do you know that, and research tells us that the average red blood cell has about 280 million copies of hemoglobin inside itself. One red blood cell contains 280 million copies of hemoglobin inside. It's amazing. Let me ask you this. Do you think you could put 280 million socks in your dresser at your home? Probably not. Well, Mother Nature puts 280 million hemoglobin molecules inside a single red blood cell, and it's all to deliver oxygen and carbon dioxide. Okay, let's continue. All right, we're getting bigger. Here's the skin cell. Take a look at the surface of your arm, right? You can really look down in there. You see the hair follicles and everything. Skin cell about 30 micrometers wide. Take a look at the photoreceptor, right? The photoreceptor, I believe this is going to be a rod. Yeah, this is a rod. This is about 100 micrometers long, but only 2.5 micrometers wide. Let me ask you a question in the chat here. Where inside your body do you find rod cells? Okay. Okay, great. Yeah, absolutely. In the back of your eyeball in an area of the eye known as the retina. Okay, this is nervous system tissue. A photoreceptor is a nervous system cell. Okay. All right. So let's get bigger here. Okay, now we get to some other things. I always point this out. Take a look at how big that sperm cell is, right? 60 by 5 micrometers, and it will fertilize this giant egg cell here, which is so large I can't fit it on the screen right now. The egg cell, right, that is 130 micrometers in diameter. It's gigantic. The human egg cell, the female egg cell, is gigantic. We have paramecium, which are, of course, a type of protozoa. You'll learn all about them in microbiology class someday. There are some species of paramecium that can be dangerous to human beings, 210 micrometers wide. Here's amoeba, 500 micrometers wide. You might have studied these things in high school biology class, right? You might have looked at them under the microscope or something, but this is how big they are. You can see that a paramecium and amoeba proteus are quite a bit larger than an individual single human red blood cell. And we get bigger, look at things that you now feel more comfortable with. A grain of salt. A grain of salt is 0.5 millimeters, mm. A millimeter is 1,000th of a meter. We get even bigger, bigger, bigger. We have a sesame seed, which might be on our bagel. We have a grain of rice, which we might be eating for dinner tonight. We have a coffee bean, which provides the caffeine we need to survive, anatomy and physiology. And we have the 12-point font on your text word processor on your computer. Okay, so that's ultra small from a carbon atom the whole way up to a coffee bean. All right, so you're experts at microwaves and elephants. I now need you to start thinking about atoms, molecules, organelles inside cells like mitochondria, lysosomes. I need to think about viruses. I need you to think about how these things are related in size. Okay. Do you have any questions? All right, so let's put some of these in your notes now. Okay, so let's put, okay, I'm looking at time here. It's 10:25. We're doing pretty okay. First, we have, we're going to go from small to large. So I'm going to put down atoms, and an example of an atom would be a carbon atom. Okay, somebody unmute your microphone and give me an example of another kind of atom. Another kind of atom. All right, if I say periodic table of elements, you can pick any atom on it you want. So give me another atom.
Would a hydrogen?
Beautiful, love it, perfect. Hydrogen atom is a perfect example.
Oh,
Me.
okay.
Okay, good
Thank-
job. Right, there's plenty of them. Just take a look at any of the atoms on the periodic table. Okay, we have oxygen atoms, carbon atoms, hydrogen atoms, et cetera, right? Okay. Now, if you take and you link atoms together into molecules, well, you build the next higher order of structural organization, which is molecules. We will define molecules more properly in chapter 2. That's what I got to get to next week. Okay. So an example of a molecule that we showed you in the website was water, but there's plenty of others. So someone give me an example of another molecule.
Sugar.
Okay, sugar. Sugars are molecules. Amino acids are molecules. Anybody else want to contribute another one?
A water molecule.
Yeah, we have that. Thank you.
Oh,
Would protein or carbohydrates?
Okay. Okay, thank you for asking those questions. And I'll put them down. A sugar is a type of carbohydrate, and amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. Okay, but for right now, I can say I can put these things down because you're thinking, and that's awesome. Okay, please understand that the examples we're providing are not exhaustive, right? There's plenty of other things we could say. I'm just giving you some examples. Okay, so we have atoms, we link them together into molecules. If we take our molecules and link them together, we will build what I refer to, and remember, like sometimes I will add to what your textbook is giving you. So you might find I communicate things a little bit differently. Okay, if you have figure 1 open on page 3 of your textbook, you'll notice it goes from atoms to molecules and then to a smooth muscle cell. Well, I think there's something in between There's something in between the molecule and the cell that you should know about. Your book's not telling you. Okay. And so I'm going to refer to this as nanostructures and nanomachines. Okay. And so examples of these things would be organelles. And by organelles, I mean things inside the cell that do stuff like mitochondria or lysosomes, okay, etc., nucleus, okay. When I talk about a nanomachine, a nanomachine, so let's say here, so organelles would be an example of nanostructures. Nanostructures examples would be organelles such as these guys. And then a nanomachine, well, there are multiple nanomachines, but the example I'll give you now is the ribosome. Okay. Ribosomes are nanomachines. Okay. So here's the deal, gang. A ribosome and a mitochondria are themselves made of multiple groups of molecules, right? Nanostructures and nanomachines are made of multiple groups of molecules. So they are bigger than single individual molecules, but they're still smaller than one cell. So they fit inside cells. Okay, so nanostructures and nanomachines would be things like the organelles of the cell, ribosomes of the cell, that kind of thing. Okay. Atoms are used to build molecules. Molecules, okay, I want you to be able to interpret this when you get it home or when you print it out for yourself. Atoms are used to build molecules. Molecules are used to build nanostructures and nanomachines. Nanostructures and nanomachines allow the fundamental unit of life to exist, which is the cell. Okay, I'll just put cell down for right now. So we can talk about examples of cells. An example of a cell would be a human red blood cell. Somebody else give me a different kind of cell, a different kind of cell.
A white blood cell.
Okay, white blood cell.
Would a skin cell count?
Okay, fair enough. Skin cell for right now. A skin cell is going to be an epithelial cell, but I like that you provided that. Thank you. Okay, so don't forget, folks, we also have these things called bacteria, right? Like E. coli and stuff like that. Remember in the website we had amoeba proteus, etc., etc. Okay. All right, so those things you're probably kind of uncomfortable with because you don't spend your life teaching biology like I do, right? But these are the things that are going to make a difference in the quality of care you can provide to a patient in the future. So, okay, so cells, of course, are linked together to form the next higher order of structure, which is tissue. And here I'm just going to give you some prime examples. I'm going to give you the four tissue categories is what I'm going to give you. We have epithelial tissue, we have connective tissue, we have muscle tissue, we have nervous tissue. That's it, folks. Epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous. Okay. Now, you appreciate that there are different subcategories of tissues. For example, under muscle, right, I've got skeletal muscle, I've got cardiac muscle for my heart, I've got smooth muscle that forms the walls of blood vessels and other narrow tubing of the GI tract for the digestive system, right? There's different subdivisions of these different types of tissues. You will learn more about these in chapter 4 than you have ever wanted to know. Okay. All right. So, I want to wrap up here in about 5 minutes. I think we can do that, wrap up the lecture portion of today. So if we take tissues and we link them together, we will build organs. Okay. And when I say organs, I think you start to get very comfortable because you know your heart is an organ, kidney, liver, spleen, ovaries, testes, brain, skin. These are organs, folks, right? Skin is an organ. Okay. So heart, kidney, liver, etc., etc. Okay. All right. If we take these organs and we link them together in some sort of logical way, then what we get to is the organ system level. Okay. Now, folks, you will learn in chapter 1 as you read it that there are 11 organ systems of the body. And you start to see them in table 1.2 as you read chapter 1, right? The integumentary system on page 4 of your book, the muscular system on page 5 of your book, the endocrine system on page 6 of your book, right? I'm not going to list them all out, but they are there, right? Digestive system, lymphoid system, etc., etc. Okay. Do you have to memorize all of these? Well, not really, but you will have a lot of homework that deals with this stuff. And so you'll start getting quite familiar with it because you'll have to do it for your homework. Okay. Question coming in the chat window. True or false? Laboratory exercises in Wiley Plus are required for the course. Okay, awesome, awesome. Just wanted to tickle you there a little bit, right? Okay, so absolutely. Okay, so we now know about the organ systems. And if I take it to its next logical conclusion, we get the complete organism, which our prime example is going to be the human body. Okay, but it could be, let's face it, if you're a veterinarian, then you're worried about dog bodies or cat bodies or giraffe bodies or whatever animal you take care of. Or it could be, you know, a big animal vet that deals with cattle on a farm. Okay, so the complete organism. All right, folks, so this is an example of how material, how matter is organized in your body. It starts with atoms, it builds to molecules, it builds to nanostructures and nanomachines, which are inside cells. Then it builds to cells, tissues, organs, organ systems, and the complete organism. Okay, gang, do you have any questions? Okay. And you know, it might be that you need to process a little bit before you actually have a question. That's okay. Shoot me an email, put a discussion topic up on Wiley Plus. It's all good. Get a tutor if you need it. Okay. So we didn't take a lot of notes here, right? There's about 1 page, but we covered a lot of content. Folks, I will make this page of notes available to you on Wiley Plus later today, and I will generally do that for every lecture period that I give you, okay? All right, so I'm going to stop lecturing, and just to let you know, What I intend to talk about next time in chapter 1, what I'm going to emphasize in my lecture is going to be the topic of homeostasis. That starts on page 9 of your textbook, homeostasis. That will be the topic of Thursday's lecture. Okay. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing that. And what we need to do, what we need to do is get into lab now. Okay, so first off, let me remind you about a couple things which I did show you, but I want to be sure you're okay with. I'm just going to remind you how you get to your lab manual in Wiley Plus. Okay. So let's see here. I got a lot of things open at this moment, right? If you are, okay, let me get rid of a couple of these things because things get pretty crazy here. Okay, so when you open your laboratory section of Wiley Plus, it's going to look like this. Here are your lab exercises. So you know from your syllabus, which you can print out for yourself if you want, that these exercises are due by next week. By next Tuesday, you should have lab exercise 1 activities done, reviewing your knowledge done, using your knowledge done. Lab exercise 2, activities done, reviewing your knowledge done, using your knowledge done. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 modules within Wiley Plus that you are to complete and have submitted by next Tuesday. Folks, those assignments are open and they will close at 9:30 next week when we start lab. They will close. So if you don't complete and submit them by then, you lose your opportunity to do so, okay? So, you know, obviously after you take a nice break later today, that should be one of your focuses moving forward for the week. I'm going to encourage you to get started reading chapter 1 in your textbook and get started with your lab exercises as homework, okay? The lab exercises are not meant to be punitive. They're not meant to hurt you. They're meant to build you up, which is why for every question you get, you have 3 opportunities. 3 opportunities on every question to get the question right. I won't mark it wrong. I won't mark it wrong. The computer won't mark it wrong until you get it wrong 4 times. Okay, so this is supposed to be a learning experience for you that you learn. Okay, so okay, any questions about the lab homework that is due next week? When I say due, it has to be submitted through Wiley Plus as completed by next Tuesday at 9:30 a.m. Okay, if you run into trouble with the technology, you know, get a hold of me and we'll wrestle through that together. Also, you remember that if you want your lab manual to go with the Wiley course resources, right? Launch the Wiley Plus e-textbook and you should have it there. You should have it there. So you can have the textbook open on one tab and the Wiley Plus exercises on another tab. And when you have a question in Wiley Plus, you can go to your lab manual and look it up, see what you need to answer, and back you go and you provide your answer in Wiley Plus. Okay. Okay. All right. So I think that's everything for the homework. Please let me know if you have questions. What we're actually going to do now is I'm going to show you what you are responsible for the lab part of our curriculum. Okay, so your homework is coming from lab. That will be graded. I've just shown it to you. Okay, it'll take a week or two to get comfortable with it, but you will get comfortable with it. The next part is the lab exams. What are you going to be expected to do on a lab exam? Here's where the anatomy really comes into the course. On lab exams, you will be tested on your knowledge of anatomy. On lecture exams, you will be more tested on your knowledge of physiology. So if I had to make a generalization, lecture exams are a lot of physiology, lab exams are a lot of anatomy. And so what do you have to know for your first lab exam? Well, let's see here. Here's our syllabus. Okay, here's our syllabus. For the first section of lab, it's all going to be about the skeleton. I need you to know the skeleton better than you would have thought you need to know the skeleton. And you will take an exam on your knowledge of the skeleton on September 28th. After that, we will go into muscles and histology. I will expect you to know many of the muscles of the body and some histology of the tissues, and you will be tested on those things on November 2nd in your exam for lab. And then the bottom third of the lab curriculum, you will be expected to know pieces of nervous system anatomy, brain, spinal cord anatomy, and that will be tested on exam 3 on December 7th. At that point, you will all look very haggard. That's okay, because I will too. All right? Don't give up. Hang in there. When you're tired, you take a break, and then you come back to it again. Okay? So we're going to start the skeleton today. What are you responsible for? Here's what you're responsible for. Under the lab portion of Wiley Plus, which I have, you go to Files. Notice I have bones for lab exam 1, I have muscles for lab exam 2, I have nervous system for lab exam 3. Right now, what you are responsible for are the bones. So I'm going to click on the bones. You can bring it up on the computer like this, but again, I think your life would be made easier if you download it and print it out for yourself. Download this document, Bones for Lab Exam 1, download it up here at the upper right, and print it out for yourself. Every term on this list there are 5 pages there. Every term on that list, you are responsible for being capable of visually identifying invisible body. Invisible body, you have to know these things. Okay? And so how a lab exam will work is this, is I will literally show you pictures of bones from the visible body software, and I will ask you, what is the name of that bone? Or, and this is getting a little bit ahead of myself, I might ask you, what is the name of that joint, right? A joint is an area where 2 bones come together or pieces of cartilage. I might ask you different parts of the bone and things like this. Okay, folks, don't get scared. This is a lot. This first day is like jumping off the deep end, right? Don't get scared. So what we're going to do next is, okay, so this is your visible body anatomy list. You are responsible for identifying all the terms on this list. Print it out if you're able to do so. I printed a copy for myself. So right now I'm going to close this window and use my copy to refer to visible body, okay? So what I'm going to do next, tell you what, I'll leave the tab open, but I can't show you multiple things at a time. I'm going to go back to visible body. Do you remember how to launch it again? Do you remember how to launch it? If you need to launch it again, let's do that. Let's launch visible body again. So go in Wiley Plus, in the laboratory portion of Wiley Plus, you go to pages. That's where your links are. You go to Zoom and visible body links. Make sure you are logged into my hack. Okay. Amy, thank you for speaking up. I need to slow down a little bit. Okay, I need to slow down a little bit.
Sorry, I had a problem and couldn't figure out how to get to that bone list.
No problem. Let's do it again. Let's do it
Thank
again.
you.
Okay. So let me show everybody how to get to visible body, and then I'll come back and do the bone list again. Okay. There is a question in the chat window. How many questions are on the lab exam? Inez, it varies from one lab exam to another, but I think you could expect on an average lab exam to have anywhere between 30 to 40 questions. And if I'm being honest with you, the exam is timed. You will not have unlimited time to take the exam because you actually need to know the content. So you will not have like 2 hours to look things up. That's not how this will work. You must know the anatomy and be able to answer questions in a reasonable amount of time. Okay. Let's do visible body, then we'll come back to the list again. So under pages, go to the Zoom and visible body links. Make sure you're logged into My Hack, click visible body. There it is. It comes up in a tab in your browser, and go to Launch Human Anatomy Atlas. And it might take a moment for the software to come up to speed here. Okay. All right. Now we'll come back to this in just a moment. Okay. We'll come back to this in just a moment. First off, is anybody having trouble getting visible body loaded? Any problems? It's okay to say I have a problem. We're here to solve the problems, okay? So I'm going to minimize that. And I'm going to come back over and try to go to the vocab list again. Okay, so Amy, we're going to do this. To get the vocab list, you go to the Files tab along the left side of Wiley Plus, the Files tab. Click Files. Right there, you should see my name, Biology 121, Bones for Lab Exam 1. Click on that. It should open on your computer.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay. All right. So now, folks, you have the bone list up, and I encourage you to print it if you have that ability. Try to print these things. It'll make life easier. Let's go back to Wiley Plus. Now I'm going to start showing you how to use Wiley Plus. Okay. At least I think I am here if my software will cooperate. Okay. Okay. So first off, let me say, like any software, you can play around with this and just push buttons and see what you like. And there'll be a lot of that early on, and I'll show you more features in the next several weeks. But up here, you notice you have views, which shows you all these views. You have media. Media will show you typically,
Cells are the basic living units of tissue. The human body is composed of trillions.
Little videos, right? Little videos that might help you with physiology. Okay. There are pre-made quizzes made by the Visible Body software. So there could be a quiz made, well, at any rate, about a lot of different things, right? So let's have a nose expression quiz, right? There's a nose expression. Select the right or left depressor septi. Okay, I'm just pressing something random here. Okay, I submit it. Nope, that was incorrect. Okay, so there are pre-made quizzes here in the software. Okay. All right. Let's see here. And what I'm going to do, to get back to the menu, there was a little thing in the bottom left that I hit menu to get back there. Okay. There's a section to save some of your own content, which I'll talk about later, honestly. For right now, what I want to do is go back to views. So go to views on your software. Notice underneath views, there's regions, there's systems, there's gross anatomy lab, cross sections, microanatomy, all right? This microanatomy will be very useful to you when we get to the content for lab exam 3, when we talk about the nervous system. And there are muscle actions, okay? Muscle actions would be like when the muscle contracts and relaxes, you know, what does it do? And you can see that the lower jaw, the mandible, is in fact moving here, right? So this is extremely powerful software, and I don't mind telling you that this software is used by medical schools, okay? Folks, you have access to it for free because we bought it at Hack for you, okay? So you'll get frustrated because I'm going to ask you a lot of hard things, but I want you to know you have some of the best tools out there to learn. Go to views, go to systems. Okay, for right now, the view system is basically where we want you to be starting out. Okay, so how do you use this? Well, let's do this. If you're at view systems, please go to skull. Number 2, click on your skull. Okay, so let me just guess, is anybody having a problem like you're lost? Okay, please speak up if you're having a problem. The first thing is simply learning how to basically do this. Now, you have a different computer or tablet than I do. I really do recommend using this on a computer. I think it works better than a tablet, but you do what technology you have. If you take your mouse and you click and hold the left mouse button, you can rotate the object. Can you rotate the skull all kinds of ways by holding the left button? Can you do that? Okay. Now, okay, I see something in the chat window. Okay, thank you. All right, Tony, great. If you have your skull up and rather than doing the left button, you hold the right button of your mouse, you should be able to move the entire object left and right, up and down. In other words, you're not rotating it, you're moving it. You're not rotating it, you're moving it. Okay? Now, if your mouse is like my mouse, I have a scroll wheel in between my mouse buttons. If I use my scroll wheel, I can scroll down to make it smaller. I can scroll up to make it larger. Okay, so can you do those 3 basic things? Can you rotate the object with the left button? Can you move the object with the right button? Can you enlarge and decrease with your scroll wheel? I'm hoping you have a scroll wheel. Okay, any major problems there? Okay. Then we're going to get started learning this. All right. The nice thing about this software is it's very forgiving. If you ever get messed up and you just need to restart, well, go back to your menu, right? Don't do what I'm about to do. Don't do what I'm about to do. But if, let's say I screwed this up somehow, well, let's go back to menu and start again. That's all I had to do to reset it, okay? All right, so the nice thing about this is that whatever piece of the skull you pick on, the software is going to tell you about it. So let's take a look at the frontal bone here. You notice when you click on the frontal bone, it highlights blue. Okay, and there's all sorts of things you can do with it. You can push buttons and figure this out during your private study time. Couple things here. Up here in the selected structure window, there's this tiny little book. If I click on it, it's going to open up and it's going to give me textual information about the bone that I've selected. It's going to tell me a little bit about it. Okay, that might be helpful to you during your study reason, time together. On a lab exam, am I going to ask you about the function of a bone or a muscle? Honestly, not so much. I'm simply going to be interested in, can you identify it? The most important question for you to be able to answer in lab is, you can identify it. Because obviously, if you got a patient and if a surgeon cuts into the wrong structure because it was misidentified, boy, we've got deep problems, don't we? So identification is really your primary task. Okay, so if you want to close that up, select that again, and it shrinks back up for you. All right, so with the frontal bone highlighted, I want to show you what you can do to examine the skull. With the frontal bone highlighted, I want you to go to the selected structures window, and I want you to hit hide. And the software just takes it away, as though you're doing a virtual dissection of the skull, a virtual dissection. And so now you can rotate down in and see the cavity of where your brain would actually be. Pretty neat, huh? Pretty neat. And so at this point, I've shown you the frontal bone, which is one of the terms on your word bank. It's right there. If you can see it, it's in the center of the front page. I'm going to show you something else next. Any questions? Okay. Folks, you tell me. I'm going to ask you a question. I'll ask it in the chat window so you can all have a chance to answer. What bone is listed on the first page of your word bank in the lower left corner? Okay. Lauren has answered. Do the rest of you see it? That she is correct. Okay, Rebecca, good job. It is the sphenoid bone. Okay. And so, folks, I'm going to use the sphenoid bone next to show you some more aspects of the software. Okay. Please speak up. If you're not okay, please speak up. All right. So the sphenoid bone, believe it or not, as I rotate the skull a little bit and magnify, is this butterfly-shaped bone right here. Now, you notice on your word bank where the sphenoid bone is listed, you notice that underneath the sphenoid bone, there's other terms. I'm going to read them to you. Here they are. Sinuses, sella turcica, greater wings, lesser wings, lateral pterygoid process or plate, medial pterygoid process or plate, the optic foramen, the supraorbital fissure, and the three terms to the right, foramen rotundum, foramen ovale, foramen spinosum. These are all landmarks or substructures of the sphenoid bone, and you have to know them. So how the heck are we going to figure this out? Here's how you're going to do it. With the sphenoid bone highlighted, I want you to go up into the selected structures window and click this multicolored thing that says details. Click it. Oh my goodness. Take a look at this. You now have a rainbow colored sphenoid bone. Okay. Are you okay? All right. So let's just start clicking around here. Let's click one of the pterygoid plates. Click this bottom right red structure. Oh, what does it say? It says it's the sphenoid lateral pterygoid. And let's say to yourself, I don't know how to even pronounce that doggone word. Go up here to the speaker. Press the speaker button on your computer.
Lateral pterygoid plates. Lateral pterygoid plates.
All right. If you have 5 people in a room doing that, you got surround sound. Awesome. Okay. Lateral pterygoid plates. The point I'm making here is that your software not only tells you the bones, it tells you all the pieces of the bones that you're going to need to know. All right. And you can rotate this around and that sort of thing. So all of these different pieces that you have to know. Now, your word bank doesn't have everything in it, but it has a lot in it. It's going to challenge you. All right. And so I think this is basically the amount of instruction I want to give you at this moment of time for this software. So, do you have any questions? Okay. You don't like this view, something's messed up with it. Hey, we go back to the start again, right? And there we are. Okay. There are more sophisticated things you can do with this software, and you might stumble upon that as you explore, as you study. That's totally cool. I want you to do that. But I don't want to feed you any more today because I feel like we're getting tired and exhausted. I know I'm starting to feel it. Okay. So what I want to do now is, what I'm going to do is go through the list of you that are online with me, and I'm going to assign everyone a section of the word bank. And we're going to go into a 30-minute study hall where you try to use the software to learn your assigned section of the word bank. After that, I'm going to put you in breakout rooms where you try to teach your assigned portion of the anatomy. Folks, you do not have to be perfect at this. You can get things wrong. I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking you to start a journey that's going to take all semester long to achieve, okay? So, any questions right now? Is everybody okay with the software at the moment? You think you're okay? All right. So I will say this because I think this could be a bit of an issue. It really is important. If you have the technology to do this, it's important that you have your Zoom and visible body on the same device, because you're going to need to share your screen with others so that you can teach them things. And if your software is on 2 different devices, that can be a problem. Okay. Okay, Walter, I see that you might be having a problem with visible body. I can try to help you once I get people started here, okay? I can try to help anybody once you get started. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Okay, let me say this. As fantastic as the visible body software is, there are some pieces of anatomy on your word bank that the software won't really show you very well. For example, on the front page of your word bank, at the top middle column, it says cranial fontanelles of the infant skull. Do you see that? Cranial fontanelles of the infant skull. Do you see that? Unless the software has been updated recently, and it might have been because the software is continually being updated. Typically, visible body has not had this anatomy in. And you say, well, how can I know it? How can I learn it? Hey, folks, don't forget about that magnificent textbook. Your textbook has it in it. Okay, so I want to do something right now with you as a very friendly competition. Here, and I'm going to put this into the chat window. Okay, so okay, as a friendly competition, what I want to do is ask all of you, okay, who can be okay, coming through the chat window now. It's a friendly competition. Doesn't matter who wins. Okay, here it comes. Who can be the first person to provide a page number in chapter 7 of your textbook that has a picture of the cranial fontanelles? Go ahead, find it. Go find it. Put the page number in the chat window. Okay, I'm seeing 208 in the chat window. If the 208 is different on the digital edition than the textbook, that's not correct for my physical book. Can others confirm 208, or would you argue against 208? Okay, Christina is saying 222. Christina, I agree with you. So Mark, I'm going to ask you to look at 222 and see if you would change your answer. Everybody look in their textbook at page 222. Do you see the fontanelles at birth, figure 714? Please give me an indication whether you're seeing this correctly in your textbook. Give me a yes or no. Okay, awesome. Great, okay, great. So folks, here's the deal. If there's something in the word bank of your lab that you're struggling to find in visible body, look it up in your textbook. And if you're really struggling, do a Google image search for it. Google image will bring it up for you, right? Then maybe you can find it better in visible body or your textbook that way. Okay. All right, so I am going to I'm going to stop the recording now. I only kept it going today for the first instructions of lab, but I won't do that in the future.